Ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you?
It's time to flip a coin and find out.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
We're calling it to see who's got the best sports knowledge here on the Coin Flip with Martin Kelly
and Jacob Zimmerman.
Flip it again.
And it's time. The Final Four in the National Football League. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly here on the Coin Flip podcast. As the Chiefs and Ravens, the Lions and 49ers all are 2 wins away from capturing the most coveted trophy in all of football. It's the Super Bowl coming up, but especially Conference Championship Week right on the near horizon. Martin Kelly, we have wrapped up our regular season prediction series, minus week 17. And, we've taken the last 2 weeks off, largely in part of me moving. I have relocated to the great state of Kansas, particularly in Wichita, which is a pretty decent-sized city, medium to large-sized city. And Martin, of course, residing in Salt Lake City, Utah. Martin, we have a massive episode today as far as what this means for the NFL. I'm going to bring you in just a moment, but I wanted to touch on our record overall in the season. Martin, we got to go back months and months to when we started this thing in early September. And we kind of had a series, we had a goal with this. We had done this kind of in years past where we had predicted, a couple games each week. I think we had done a year or two of that. But for this season, we did every single game. And I go 153 and 103. Martin goes 144 and 112. Martin had a nice close to the year, but I was able to finish off strong in the last couple of weeks or so and win the series. So, Martin, the next time out in Utah, the next time we link up, you will be paying for our meal. So, congratulations to me. Congratulations on, the Lions, the Chiefs, San Fran, and the Ravens all making it to this point in the season. I think a couple of these teams we saw coming. Some others we did not. Martin, when you look at these 4 teams, kind of put this all in perspective, and then after you do that, let's start with the NFC.
So with the 2 games, this is going to be interesting. The Chiefs are a team that has been fighting harder in these playoffs than I can remember in the last few years. Obviously, 6 years in a row being in the AFC title game, very impressive. The Ravens, John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, the Roquan Smith, the defense. I mean, what's there more to say about Baltimore? They've had a really great season. The Lions, fun year, fun story. Let's see if they can capitalize on it, being that I'm a Chicago Bears fan, but my grandfather and my dad are big Lions fans, so the last couple weeks have been crazy. 49ers, well, I guess just like the Ravens, they've been a machine all year, and they've just looked like one of the best teams in the NFL. We called them the number 1 team probably for like the 2-3 months of the season, but Baltimore proved it on Christmas Day that they're probably the number 1 team on all these 4 teams left, and let's see who wins this Sunday.
Can't freaking wait. Martin, we are ripping this on a Thursday evening, just a couple days away. Martin, I wanted to touch on this Lions-49ers contest first because, nobody saw the Lions at this point. They were a great story. They had knocked off the Chiefs back in week 1, and kind of all things come full circle for Jared Goff. Dan Campbell proving that he has, kind of emerged as one of the best motivators that we've seen in recent NFL history. Ben Johnson, a mastermind on the offensive coordinator spot. And, a great running game to all go with it with Montgomery and Gibbs. And perhaps, the most inevitable thing we could have seen coming was another tight end from Iowa in Sam Laporta breaking out into perhaps near superstardom. You look to the other side, Martin, 99% of the public, I feel like, is rooting for the Lions at this point to win this game. But my man, the former Panther, Christian McCaffrey, has a shot to get a Super Bowl ring, his best one yet. Brock Purdy, who everybody has some sort of opinion on, has a chance to right the ship and finish what could be, or maybe just begin, what could be one of the greatest stories in sports history. And then you got a lot of dogs, a lot of perhaps Hall of Famers on that San Fran squad who are all looking to add to their resume. So, Martin, when we kind of look at this matchup, I'm thinking 49ers. But this is the close contest. This is the hardest pick, I feel like, in Conference Championship Week. Most people actually will disagree with that. I think this is the hardest pick because this should be in decent weather. And, boy, my golly, how the Lions are playing lately. Martin, if I'm leaning 49ers, am I right? Am I wrong? What are you thinking?
This is interesting because if we break down this game, the Lions are a great run stop defense. They've been up there in the hierarchy ranks all season when it comes to run stop, but they are one of the worst pass stop defenses in the league, even though they gave um, Detroit and Tampa, good runnings, and it all came down to passing. Obviously, Baker throwing 2 interceptions, Matthew Stafford throwing an interception, so 3 interceptions in 2 games. Very impressive by that defense. But they gave over 300 yards in both games to Tampa and Los Angeles in those games. So when you look at this with the Niners, can the Niners expose the Detroit Lions' weak passing abilities and expose them for some of the man-to-man coverages they throw out there because they like to throw the blitz out there? Can the Niners expose that even without Deebo Samuel, possibly, who's not going to play this weekend? Even in good weather, even in Santa Clara on the Bay Area, good timing, all whatnot, even with the perfect sun. The Niners defense is just so strong and so competitive and doesn't allow very much. Fred Warner, the leader, Shadavius Ward, the one that watches for everyone in the secondary. Obviously, we could talk about the Niners offense, but I think this game will solely come down to both defenses. Both offenses will play their best games. The Lions will throw their play action offense out there with David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, and with Laporta and with St. Brown and Williams. We know the same thing with the Niners. Their play action, their motion, their wide counters and wide runs and whatnot. It's just going to be a great defensive matchup. Let's see which defense gives up the first blow, and I think from there the dominoes will fall in the game. I'm going to go with the upset. I'll take the upset. Give me the Lions only because, one, nostalgia, two, bias, being that I have 2 family members who are Lions fans and have a whole entire section of family who are Lions fans. I would love to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. It'd be a great story. I think if the Lions can just get to Brock Purdy and blitz him enough and throw him off his game without Deebo as his blanket, I think the Lions have a solid chance.
I'm going to count on the 49ers defense to show up in some way, create some pressure on Jared Goff, give him some different looks that he hasn't seen. Now, I am leaning 49ers to win this outright. We always predict games outright. But when it comes to the spread, I think I'm more confident in the Lions covering than I am in the Niners covering. It's at 7 flat right now, Martin. If it jumps up, or, just go ahead and buy it up to 7.5. Maybe tease it and get it, to 10 or 12 or whatever you can. But I think the Lions will keep this one close. I don't see this being a 49ers blowout at all. I just think they'll sneak it out. I think they'll sneak it out. Even, Kyle Shanahan down, 5+ points entering the fourth quarter. Got his first win in 31 games finally last week. So it's a shaky prediction, Martin. It is. I admit it. But, I trust my man McCaffrey to make some good plays down the stretch. Fred Warner, Greenlaw, Bosa. That is a 3-headed monster on the defensive end. And I think a lot of those running lanes are not going to be quite the same come Sunday. Moving on over to the other side of the bracket, Chiefs and Ravens. Martin, I'm a lot more confident in this game. I have been kind of in a little verbal battle, just slightly, with the guy I'm now doing a radio show with, Martin. He's got the Ravens. He liked the Bills last week. And I just feel like the Chiefs are proving why they've reached this kind of different level compared to everyone else in the NFL, where they tricked a lot of you, not me, in the regular season for how good they actually are. I don't think they were giving 100% throughout the regular season. That's kind of unheard of in the National Football League. I think the Chiefs kind of coasted, and here they are, playing their best ball. I'm taking Kansas City money line as the dog. Patrick Mahomes is the best. When you look at the he's like the best underdog quarterback ever when you look at the numbers. Now, it's as if one game has suddenly completely wiped the narrative that we've always heard about Lamar Jackson in the postseason, whether it be fair or not. Now, I get it. He had a great game last week. But normally when we see a quarterback finish with 150 passing yards, we absolutely rip him. I know that's what we do with Brock Purdy. So, all I know is down the stretch in the AFC Championship game, I don't care who is at home, if you need Lamar to go the distance of the field, dropping back in pass coverage with no threat of the run against L'Jarius Sneed, I don't know. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. I'm a lot more confident in this game. Martin, am I crazy?
So there's a possibility we could have a repeat of another Super Bowl. Obviously, Niners, Chiefs a few years back. The Chiefs came back in that game. The Niners, the Emmanuel Sanders missed throw by Jimmy Garoppolo, the fair catch, punt, whatever catch on the third down by Tyreek Hill to win the game or to help win the game for the Chiefs. Or there could be a possibility of a repeat of the Christmas Day game. Niners and Ravens. That would be a fun one, repeat. Or, obviously week 6 when we all picked the Lions over the Ravens and we were wrong because that was 35-0 after 3 quarters in Baltimore. That was a very unfortunate game for the Lions. To this game, look, I'm already going to say it. I'm picking the Ravens. And the reason why I'm picking the Ravens is because the Chiefs have gotten lucky in these 2 playoff games. Yes, I know they dominated the Dolphins, minus 30-degree weather, but the Dolphins were the Dolphins. They imploded the last 6 weeks of the season, and they threw the division away and had to go on the road for a playoff game instead of being in sunny Miami in 50-degree weather. Difference of a good amount of degrees. To the Bills... The Bills blew that. Simple as that. The Bills had plenty of opportunities in that game to score. Their defense did nothing. Von Miller has gone from a sure Hall of Famer to looking like a complete and total bust of a player now these days. He didn't even have a sack in the game. He barely had a sack all season. So the Chiefs have gotten lucky in these 2 playoff runs, and that's why I think their playoff luck will run out. Lamar Jackson and Baltimore are so much better. They're so good. They're going to be at home. They're in rainy weather. They know how to play in this weather. And, they just know how to play to their elements. And the Ravens defensively will give Kansas City their best matchup all year so far. That defense will smother Kansas City. They'll be blitzing, they'll be attacking, they'll be intercepting. There will be a bad pass by Patrick Mahomes in this game. I can guarantee it. Valdez-Scantling won't get lucky with the passes he caught last week. Kadarius Toney could possibly be out, so they don't need that idiot lining off sides to destroy a touchdown celebration, game-winning drive. Thank God. They do have their running backs, but I'm taking the Ravens. I like the Chiefs defense, but I don't like the Chiefs offense. They've been lucky in these last 2 games. Give me Baltimore. Baltimore and Detroit is my Super Bowl.
Baltimore and Detroit. I don't know if I will be able to blink twice. 2 Sundays, whatever it is from now, in February, if in the Super Bowl is Ravens and Lions, and be able to believe I'm awake. I mean, that's going to be insane if that plays out. I'm going to
It is
trust
insane.
history a little bit more. I'm going to roll with the Chiefs and the Niners. But, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a bad Super Bowl. I'm not saying that. I just think that'd be a crazy sight to see the Lions in that game.
Hey, I hate to cut you off. I apologize, but it is crazy because you got to think about it in the history perspective of it, outside of what's going on, Jacob. Kansas City could go to its fourth Super Bowl in 6 years. I mean, that's something that the Patriots didn't do during their time. The Niners didn't do that during the 80s. You have to basically go back to the Steelers of the 70s, who went to 5 Super Bowls in 7 years during that time. The Baltimore Ravens are hosting the first AFC Championship game in Baltimore since 1971. That's when the Baltimore Colts went on to Super Bowl V and kicked a field goal to beat the Dallas Cowboys and give Johnny Unitas his only Super Bowl ring. You have the Lions, obviously haven't been to the NFC Championship game since 1992. They lost to the Washington Commanders, who went on to beat the Buffalo Bills. Their second straight loss in the Super Bowls. They gave Mark Rippon his only championship and Joe Gibbs his third Super Bowl in 1992. So the Niners, they could be one of the few 4 teams in the NFL to go to 8 Super Bowls in their entire history. So this weekend is more than just games. The history of the NFL is being written in our very front of our eyes. And I agree with you. Could we have ever said Ravens and Lions in a Super Bowl? I agree with you. No, we would have never said it at the beginning of the season or beginning of any season prior to this one. Who knows? History will be written. Some team will be remembered as a dynasty, and someone's legacy will be cemented. That's a definite in these 2 games.
So, Martino, we have got a couple of new coaches in the NFL. Let's start out with my Carolina Panthers, Martino. We have a new QB coach combo coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have Dave Canales now as our head coach. So we're going to see what Canales brings to the table, an offensive mind around Bryce Young. I like that idea. I listened to like one interview from the guy. Seems like he has himself put together. Young guy, a young guy has a chance to, be that next great young coach. And we're going to see what happens, Martin. The bar is really, really low in Carolina. So crossing over the bar, hopefully, is not going to be an impossible task for Dave. Now, David Tepper might be a hard task. I think I saw some quote already on a Panthers fan page that, with our new GM, Dan Morgan. Martin, Dan Morgan played for the Miami Hurricanes football team, which I love, and the Carolina Panthers, which I love. So he's now the GM of the franchise. I love it, Martin. I love it. So he's got Canales on the board, but the quote, I think Dan's personality, it's about Morgan. I think Dan's personality is built for this. If there's a guy that is in the room that'll step up and say, this is how we're going to do it, you hired me for a specific reason, let me do my job. I've seen him do that. So that's great in terms of being around David Tepper. So I think that's kind of where the Panthers' issues lie. And then, of course, John Harbaugh going to the Chargers. I imagine both of us think that's a lock for eventual success. And I'll allow you go to further depths on that. Raheem Morris is now the Falcons head coach out of nowhere. Bill Belichick is in shambles. Someone said he looks like prime time. It's kind of funny. Martin, your comments on the new head coach hires before we get out of here.
So Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles, I said this to one of my colleagues yesterday. This is a solid hire, but this is also risky at the same time. What will the Spanos do? Will they finally get out of the way? Will they let Jim Harbaugh and Herbert actually compete? Because I think they're a legit viable team to compete against offensively against Kansas City and compete for an AFC West title division. They got to get the defense fixed. We'll see where they go in that direction. Raheem Morris, I feel like this is a stretch for Atlanta. They had him 3 years ago as their interim head coach. They fired him after the season. Didn't think he was a strong head coach to get the interim tag off and become the permanent head coach. I think he's a solid hire. He did a good job in Los Angeles with a defense, but I mean you can't really mess up when you got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey in your defense. So all you got to do is just call a right play and just let magic happen, and basically it does. Um, to your Panthers, I'm going to be on the opposite side of you, Jacob. I think this is a flat of a hire. I understand you wanted to go get an offensive mind to help with Bryce Young, but you had an offensive mind with Frank Wright, and then he decided to throw a hissy fit because he didn't like Bryce Young and threw the season away. I like the hire decently, a good strategy to go with a young guy, Sean McVay style or Cincinnati style with their coach. Um, get the young guys in there, see what type of energy they can bring to a young team. But at the same time, his offense wasn't explosive in Tampa, and that's kind of my point in the sense that you had an offense with Baker, Mike Evans, and Godwin, and at times you only put up less than 20 points in some games. And against against the Lions twice, Baker threw in both games he combined for 4 interceptions. So I think he's got a strategic mind. I think he's got a great understanding of the game, but I think his play calling sometimes is questionable. I think he was working with a quarterback that was short, so he'll have experience with that with Bryce Young, but at the same time, I feel like it's a flat of a hire. I think it's just a hire just to make a noise and bring something to Carolina. But I honestly think Jim Harbaugh should have been in Carolina. I think he would have been the smartest coach for them to bring some type of experience and some type of leadership. That's kind of I think that what Carolina needed, and they decided to go with offensive mind. But nonetheless, I think Jim will be the most successful. We'll see what else everyone else does, but right now I think Jim is the runaway just because it's Jim Harbaugh off a national championship. That's really it. We'll see what he really does because we all know what Jim Harbaugh did in San Fran was great, but he also fought with players. He also fought with management, and that's why he got fired and went to Michigan. So can he control his temper and act right and win a division? That's his goal as a head coach. And right now, I think Jim Harbaugh is the top one of the entire coachings that got hired.
Yes, of course, Martin. I would have taken Jim Harbaugh in a heartbeat. You got the Lions and the Ravens. I got the Chiefs and the Niners. That's the Coin Flip Podcast. Jay-Z, M. Kelly, signing off. See ya.
Peace.